Hello again, and welcome back to the Summoner's Guide to Final Fantasy XIV. Our next little dungeon romp is going to be the Sunken Temple of Qarn hard mode. Now, if you recall, the Sunken Temple of Qarn was definitely one of the more challenging dungeons in the trek to level 50. This one certainly isn't any harder than the original. In fact, I'd almost say it's probably a little easier. But there are still some interesting mechanics to figure out. But nothing quite as difficult as the first boss of normal mode. No, I would suggest not Big Pole's a healer. He can't even hold these guys. Okay, so the important thing to take care of in this dungeon are the cracked Qarn facers. They contain stones that are basically used as keys to the doors later on. Not really that much to talk about during trash pulls here. But when the sphere appears, get it. Now again, most tanks will make bigger pulls in this dungeon, and will usually try to go and open that door and continue this pull into the next room. Now in this room, don't stand on those things where the spikes are coming up, but if you're the tank, pull the enemies onto the spikes, as the spikes will hurt them. Jump down that hole, obviously, and this takes us to the first boss. Now this first boss has some interesting strategies involved. Summoner 2-step to get your pet into the room. Then, as soon as the tank decides to walk into the room, the damaged adjudicator appears, and one of his body parts will glow. In this case, it's the head, so the head is what you need to destroy. So always watch for the body part that glows. That is the part that you need to kill. And once it shatters, now you'll have a bunch of ads to take care of. Then the adjudicator will appear again. This time it looks like it's the tail that needs to be killed. Now, when that sandstorm appears, that whirlwind, don't stand in it. If you're in it too long, you will die instantly, like the tank just did. I honestly don't think the tank has played this before, because that's a mechanic you need to know. Alright, and it looks like it's the tail again. When you're targeted with that thing, he'll put up a sand sphere that you need to try to bait away from the party. Alright, once you've actually done that 3 times, taking out the appropriate body part, and then kill the ads that spawn, he's going to come back with just a couple, just like maybe like 3 or 4% health left. He will not have any targetable parts at that point, so now you just need to whittle down. Yeah, he's at 5%. So you just need to whittle him down that last 5%. Watch out, he's going to do that sand cyclone one more time. And that's all she wrote. Again, not a difficult boss, but if you're not aware of that quicksand mechanic there, it will kill you. Either you get out of it before the timer runs out, or you die. And you're slowed down while you're in the sand, so don't think you're just going to get out at the last second. You need to move right away on that. Which again is not as hard as a caster, as you're probably not going to have to worry about the full radius unless it centers around you, which is very possible that it will. Yeah, I'm not sure that this tank is very experienced in tanking, which, I mean, I don't claim to be the greatest tank in the world myself, Alright, so with these Vice Turret, you need to take out the left hand, or the hands first, as the hands are going to bind a character and put them right in the way of an attack from the head. Now the hands will regenerate over time, so be prepared to take it out again once the hand regenerates. Alright, the hand may come up in a moment, so I'm going to refresh my dots just in case it does. Okay, it is. But we might be able to take care of the head before the hand becomes an issue. Yep. Now, these holes, it's actually possible to skip. I believe it's this room you can skip. By going up over the rubble on the left-hand side. It's one of those things where the entire party has to be aware of it and all agree to do it. Because if one person doesn't, then all of a sudden you're going to find the entire party getting attacked by the enemies. Alright, this tank is not using any sort of AoE moves. I really don't want to speak bad of any player. I really don't. But I do think this tank needs a little more practical experience. Because he's in tank stance, so that's not the issue. So I can't count the times that I have forgotten to enter tank stance and have found it difficult to hold hay. And also, now, you know, giving him the benefit of the doubt, he might not be as well geared as I am. And if that's the case, then I may just be taking hate as just by putting out too much DPS. That's not unheard of. Alright, so... this Vicegerent's head has 2 hands. So it is there's a very good chance that you will get yourself targeted by one of them. Now, keep in mind, in this fight, there are, in fact, 2 hands, so you do need to worry about the fact that both hands will probably regenerate if you're not taking out the head quickly enough. Alright, there's the left hand. So that's that, and that actually opens up the passage to the second boss. Oh, I need to repair my gear. I was gonna do that before starting this dungeon, but I forgot to stop by a mender. Always stop by a mender. You don't want to lose the effect of your gear by running out of condition on it. Alright, this boss is another one where focus is important. Actually, it's very similar to the Captain Madison fight in the in Sastasha Hard, where you just need to be pumping out the damage to keep the boss from using its most powerful attacks. Yeah, all of my gear is at 10%, or at least all my accessories are. Alright, so hopefully the tank will pull everything in toward the boss, so that I can start baiting. Because the boss will start counting needles, and when it gets to 100,000, then it will basically wipe the party. Oh, please, tank, pick up the enemies. Alright, the Guardia is what you need to take out, because it will actually shield. Oh good, the healer is addressing the elephant in the room. So yeah, just keep focusing damage on the boss no matter what, to keep it from getting that 100,000 needles attack off, because it's one that gets interrupted by doing enough damage. The Guardia, on the other hand, is going to absorb the damage from the boss, so you need to take the Guardia out immediately once it appears. Now again, ideally the tank is holding hate on everything, so you can use those nice AoE effects to take care of everything. This has not been happening in this run, but again, that sort of thing happens, you adjust. Alright, now these Tomb Raiders are not of the attractive female archaeologist variety. They're just your standard run-of-the-mill criminal Tomb Raiders. But the important thing about these Tomb Raiders is that they do carry the third gem that you're going to need to complete this dungeon. You absolutely need the Star Sphere. I do remember, because it's very possible to skip those Tomb Raiders and just move on to the next room without fighting them. I recall doing it once in a party, and then we realized that we couldn't actually finish the dungeon that way. So we had to go back and fight them because they have that item that you absolutely need. Now again, most of these poles are actually locked behind doors, so you're not going to be able to make a big pull in any of these rooms anyway. Not that I really want this tank taking too big of pulls, just because if you're going to be taking big pulls, you have to use AoE tank moves, like Overpower or Iron Tempest in the case of a warrior. Alright. So really, these enemies you see in this room are pretty much the entirety of the trash that we're going to have to worry about for the remainder of this dungeon. Now that glowing pillar of the multiple colors there is what's going to open up the room or where the final boss is. But in order to get into that room, we need to kill the Blodian Knights on both sides of this section here, each of which will open up one of the side doors. And each of those side doors has a pedestal that we're going to need to put one of the glowing stones that we acquired earlier in the dungeon into. Once both of those pedestals are occupied with the stones, then that pedestal in the middle will become available. And that will open up the final boss room. Don't have to follow me. I am 95% sure that this tank is completely new to this dungeon. Which again, I'm really not complaining to the point where he really does. I mean, you could play these things to learn these things. My concern is he's probably not going to get very far in tanking if he doesn't use AoE tanking moves. At this level, you have to use AoE tanking moves. You've got to be able to hold pain for when your summoner gets ornery and actually tries to do some damage. And again, part of it may be I may be so far overgeared on this guy that he's having a hard time holding hate against my DPS, and that can be a problem if you're a well-geared DPS going in with a not so well-geared tank. So this part might be much my issue as it is his. Alright, well, let's see how this boss goes. This boss has some very complicated, well, not very complicated, but some tricky mechanics to worry about here. This is the Vicegerent to the Regent. Try to stay out of his front arc as best as possible. But don't stay too close to the edges, and make sure your camera is always zoomed out. Because eventually you'll see two rows of coffins show up. Mummies are going to pop out and go across the room. If you get hit by these mummies, you're going to get a stacking debuff, and if you get, I believe, 3 stacks, you'll turn into a mummy yourself and lose control of your character for a period of time. You don't want this to happen. So and each one is going to cover up about a third of the arena. So you just don't want to be in that third of the arena. So in this case, they're taking the north half and the north third and the south third. You want to be in the middle third. Alright, there's one, there's the other, so I'll just make sure I'm not in one of the sections of the arena where they are. And so that's going to be a mechanic that's going to occur throughout the fight. You're always going to be looking for... Alright, that's the other mechanic. You're always going to be looking for the sections of the room that are not affected by mummies, but when he looks at you and uses the attack Light of Anathema, oh crap. Gotta get to the north end of the arena. No, when he uses Light of Anathema, you want to be not in his line of sight. Otherwise, you get hit by it, it hurts, and you get Curse of the Mummy, and he's gonna kill the heck out of me. Why doesn't the tank have hate? I am gonna use Diversion. And I'm gonna use that. Oh, he got affected by the Curse of the Mummy. So I will use some hate mitigating tactics like diversion and lucid dreaming, which I should have been doing throughout this dungeon, to be perfectly honest. That is completely and totally my fault. I'm not used to having to use those mitigating effects. So, oh, I have 3 stacks, and I'm not affected yet, so I think it's going to be a 4th stack that's going to affect me. They are hurting me pretty bad. And now I'm gonna die. No, I'm not. Yeah, we're having a lot of, Oh yeah, the other thing you gotta worry about. Whenever a party member turns into a mummy, they're gonna walk diagonally across the arena. And if you get hit by them, they will affect you. So yeah, you got to see that fight in all of its glory. And that's definitely kind of a what not to do in that dungeon. You can get through that entire fight without getting mummified if you keep an eye out for stuff, but if not, it can get rather nasty like it did there. But again, it's a good way to demonstrate the mechanics of the fight, so I'm keeping it in there. To any of you who, if in the extremely unlikely event that any of you who played this dungeon run with me are watching, and especially the tank, know that I bear you no ill will. I do advise that you learn a few things about AoE tank moves. That's going to be a little important, and again, I should have been using more hate mitigating moves myself, like diversion and lucid dreaming. But yeah, it's a good learning lesson on what to do and what not to do in a dungeon. So that's 2 out of the 3 for the 2.4 series. The 3rd and final one that we're going to be doing, I've got a little bit to do in the story to unlock. And we still, of course, have 2 trials in the 2.4 series to worry about. But until that time, have a wonderful day.